foster friends and family. I'm Charles, and you're listening to the Fosterdaddirective podcast, where we explore the foster care system and my experience with it. I might actually change that. I think we might do more like foster parenting and foster care system. I'll kind of look into that and see how I want to change it, because I might actually give that a little tweak, because I want this to be more than just related to foster care and kind of explore parenting as well. But today we will actually be talking about jealousy between foster siblings, and this could kind of go for siblings as well. I know I'm going to relate a little bit of it to my sisters and myself, and maybe even my younger siblings, even though I was already an adult essentially when they came around, so it wasn't as much of an issue. I will actually be going off 2 articles, and please understand that it's not always going to be like this with such a low listener base, and kind of getting my bearings on what to go through for a topic. There's a lot of points where I know what topic I want to hit. I have a good point of my experience with it, but I also kind of want to see what's out there resource-wise. So if you have any questions, you can go to an article instead of just listening to me jabber on. And it kind of gives me points to focus on and go over, and also some resources to kind of look into that I could potentially use. Which the first article was actually from Agape Adoption Agency of Arizona. It was a short but good article. It has some good points to hit on. Wasn't as nearly laid out and in depth as I would have liked. So I also chose New Age WalkHard hospitals. That WalkHard is WOCKHRDT. And this one, I like the way it was laid out. It kind of boldened the main point of the item and gave a little synopsis, I guess it'd be called, of it. And it helped quite a bit. So I will use both of those articles. And honestly, when talking about jealousy, we've experienced it numerous times. I actually wrote down a few that after we go through all these, I will go over kind of what we noticed and what we tried to do, along with what I could have done, honestly, because I'm 35. I'm not a parent biologically. So all of this was pretty new to me. So it's been really hard trying to navigate some of these things. And there's no way I could ever really understand what a foster child is going through. So this kind of gives you a little bit of insight into what these feelings may come up. So as always, please know that I'm not a trained professional. The views expressed on this podcast are those of the host, and in the future other hosts or guests, and do not constitute professional advice unless otherwise stated by said guest. Please ensure you seek adequate and effective legal counsel to best protect yourself in this ever-changing system, especially outside of the state of Michigan. So for updates, we do have a few. I don't think I touched on it on the last podcast because I believe that one was recorded before we got them. We did take in 2 kids under 10. They are 2 very rambunctious girls. And I'm saying that in the most sincere way, and just their energy is absolutely through the roof and honestly uplifting, especially with having, the other kid and the toddler out of our care. That was kind of, I'd probably say I hit a little bit of a depression for a few days at least, just having 15 months kind of go away essentially overnight and not having the agency listen to our concerns, honestly. It just kind of felt we were seen as being a barrier to the care of the infant, which wasn't the case. I mean, you're taking someone who's under the age of 3 and taking that infant away from their entire social circle for the last 15 months. And granted, the person they were placed with did have visits, but they only had 1 overnight before the move, which just seems honestly destructive to me, because he's not really going to know why we left. He's just going to know that everyone he had seen for so long just disappeared out of his life. And I'm not saying that in my sense to make myself feel better, even though I guess I could see how it could be construed like that we were looking out for our own emotions, but I'm an adult. I can go to therapy. I can take care of myself no matter what barriers come, but I do want to do an episode on it because I just feel it was so destructive, honestly. But the girls have been a nice bit of energy and uplifting presence in the house lately. So it's definitely helped with all that. And in doing research for this topic, I also did come across a Reddit post, take it at face value, where 2 people got licensed and took in 5 children in under 5 months of fostering. Please don't do that. They said the first 3 were under 5, and then they took in 2 separate ones. Having done it for 3 years almost now and never having over 3, it is a lot. And what we're going to go over in this article topic is one you will definitely deal with. We've dealt with it through most of them, honestly. You're going to see a lot of jealousy and just friction in general because you don't know exactly where they're coming from. With the 2 that we just got, we've noticed that the older boy has gotten kind of not really confrontational. He's just kind of fed up with it and actually for the first time started to request to go stay with biological family, which I mean is understandable. If you're a teen, you don't want to be dealing with 2 rambunctious children under the age of 10, but also they're kids. They're going to be loud. There's days where, because I'm on thirds, I sleep. So after I do all these podcasts, I'm going to go to bed and then they'll get home and it'll be a rambunctious circus like usual. So I can completely understand, but it's also one of those things that happens. And what I'm hoping to kind of go through for this is to kind of see why it's happening and, give some examples of things that can be done to actually remedy those situations or kind of like soften the stress and everything that comes along with them. And if you are listening to this article and have any suggestions on how I should do the articles, please let me know. If you think I should go in order, go like 1 through 11 and go one by one and tell you how they are compared to what I want, or only go over ones that relate to me, please let me know. Please reach out. And also, if you hear me say words a lot like please also understand that I am trying to work on that. I have noticed it, especially in my other podcast. So I am trying. I am focusing on that. Please do understand that I am not oblivious to that. This is all just pretty new to me. I mean, the 15 episodes I've done with this, I guess this would be 16, and the 9 I've done for my other podcast are the most talking I've really done. I've even tried streaming video games to kind of get in the gist of talking. So thank you for being patient with me. And if you've stuck around and listened to my podcast, I do truly appreciate you. So for the article we are actually going to focus on most is going to be the WalkHard one. And then I will kind of relate it to the Agape one as well, but just kind of going off extra information I can see over on that one and have read through. Which it states for the first one, stay calm. And this is essential. If you get elevated and start going into essentially survival mode, getting that fast heartbeat, getting tense, that's going to carry over to the children. We've learned that in so many different trainings for foster care that while you can say one thing, if your voice is raised in anger, children can sense that and pick up on it, and it is going to take an actual toll on their mood and how they're behaving at the current moment. And if you're coming in there tense and trying to go at things and put an adult spin on something, where you're processing different things in a logical sense, it may not be the same for the child. Children don't exactly process everything the same way we do, which you can always see in the way kids do certain things. If a kid is going to, say, play in the toilet, obviously we know that that's absolutely terrible because of the germs and everything, but for a kid, they don't see it as that. They have a whole different worldview and may not realize that. So they're going to take everything that you're feeling and putting off, if you're clenching your fist, if you have a certain stance, your arms crossed, your tone, it is all going to radiate onto them. So please, please, please just stay calm. If you have to kind of step back and take a few breaths, kind of get your thoughts together, please do before you go into this. And honestly, there's been some times where I've not reacted in the best ways, especially if, I've had a bad day at work or been sore. And there was one time I needed to go get a shovel or something from Home Depot, and I was about to go, and one of the kids wanted to go with me. And unfortunately, I made a snappy remark about just wanting to go and get it done, and then it hurt her feelings. And honestly, I regret it on the drive there. And it's one of those things that I wish I could take back, but honestly, I can't sit and dwell on it because it wasn't one of the only issues in that placement. And it has helped me learn, especially when I was in therapy, and one of the reasons I'm hoping to get back into therapy, which also does relate to number 2, which is each child is important. And it's good to remember that each child is different in their own ways, as to where you can joke with one child, another child might take it personally and think you are legitimately feeling a certain way and not just giving them goodness. So yeah, I've at least been thinking about it, so I know when I'm saying it. But children will respond to your words and actions towards them differently. And number 3 is spend some time with each child separately. which is one I've tried to do since we started fostering. I noticed it pretty early on, even before looking into stuff similar to this, where I attempted to set up personal time for us to hang out, kind of do things that each child liked, either going to concerts, going to museums, going shopping, whatever it was. I tried to make time for each of the kids, which rolls into number 4, which is planning out activities in the week for family activities, which can be extremely hard when you are fostering. I mean, even being a parent, you never know when a kid's gonna, fall and sprain their ankle because they wanted to throw on a curtain and jump off the top of the stairs and try to fly. So try your best to plan things out. Kids do seem to benefit from routines. Thankfully, I've noticed like younger children, like preteens, are a little more flexible. But as I learned with the last kid we did have, he did remember things. So if you promised him something, you better go through with it. So in the planning, make sure you are flexible and considering that child may remember whatever you promised them for years. This has gone back for me all the way back to when I was doing things with my brothers when they were little kids and kind of the things I'd fail them on. And I know my one brother would, my mom had promised him a Switch and he was calling like UPS, Amazon, just everything looking for that Switch until it had actually come through the mail. So kids remember this stuff and they don't generally forget what you are promising them. And for number 5, listen to complaints and respond. Honestly, like number 2, every child is going to be different. One child might want to spend every waking moment with you and there might be children that don't. The 2 younger kids, they want to be around us all the time, as to where the 14-year-old, he doesn't care if we're even in the house. And that might not be true, like in his head, but he's in his room all the time outside of, dinner if we go do something. So if something's brought up where it is a complaint, say cracking jokes with them and they don't feel comfortable, just take that into consideration. It's one where I've had to work on it because I am kind of a jokey person. And so I forget, like even with my buddy's niece who we've had stay with us, one time she was wanting to learn how to crochet and I just, the way my brain works, said, crocheting's for old ladies. And then she started crying and I felt so bad, but I was like, that's the only thing that came to mind. It wasn't a bad thing. It's just like I remember my grandparents doing it. So please make sure that if they make complaints like that, just know it's not personal. It's honestly their personality. Every kid's different and they might eventually grow into it, especially if they see you making jokes towards other people that you care about, so that they know that essentially they're not the new person in the house and that you're just picking on them. And number 6 is make special efforts. This one I've seen a lot, especially when we had the 17-year-old, we'll call her Emma. She was of Mexican heritage, so we made sure to go to one of the local mercados and kind of get different things she was used to. We'd pick up supplies so she could cook dinner. She'd actually call her biological father and get recipes and ask how to cook certain things. And we tried to make sure that everything was done to keep her into that world and not draw her into my super white lifestyle, which is essentially, while I'll cook and everything, I don't really have an understanding of a lot of cultures. And I definitely love like Mexican food and everything like that, but it was super interesting to actually listen to, the different musics and everything. And then we've had the younger kids who were of African American descent, so my wife had to actually go through and get hair care products and do things that we normally wouldn't do for ourselves. And she went onto Facebook boards, kind of got different ideas from those and asked for resources, which none of them came from the foster care agency, even though they were complaining about his hair. So it's always good to make those extra special efforts and make the kid feel comfortable, do things with them that they enjoy, especially when it comes to personal care and teaching them, the kid, he didn't come to us with anything and didn't know how to brush his teeth or personal hygiene after using the bathroom. So all that had to be taught. But that's stuff they'll carry on forever. And if you're making that special effort and going above and beyond, they're going to remember that. And I know, even though the 17-year-old's not with us anymore, she has to remember all that stuff that we did with her. I mean, I had a blast doing it and learning about different recipes from Mexico. And there are days when it saddens me that it doesn't happen anymore. But I am grateful that it did happen. And I did try to the best of my ability, honestly. And this brings us to number 7, which is get help from your family. This one I've talked about in the past. My family's been so accommodating. Even my coworkers right now were doing essentially they all wanted to put in money and get gifts for the kids. And I told the one lady, I was like, we got a 7 and 9-year-old on Friday, full of energy. And then she wanted what they wanted, their ages and stuff, so she could also include them in there. I am a member at my American Legion post. I actually messaged the woman the day before our Christmas party for the Legion, being apologetic and stating that we had gotten these kids the day prior and like asking if there was any way we could get them involved in the Christmas party. And they had such a blast. They were playing with other kids. One lady even came up and told us that she was so happy that they were playing with her granddaughter because they were running around being rambunctious. And it was so nice to have happen. We've gotten help from Cassie's friend who's stayed with the infant toddler, while we were at an adult summer camp last year. She stayed over the weekend. All of our parents have been amazing in getting all this stuff done, helping us out. I've had friends really come through and give us supplies when we had nothing, none of which we've gotten from the foster care agency. Even when we got kids in with nothing, all we got was a complaint from the boys' guardian ad litem about how our house was cluttered, even though we were the ones bringing in stuff for them, not her. So getting help from your family is huge. But honestly, no, if you don't have help from your family, don't let it dissuade you from seeking help with your kids, especially if you're fostering. There's always resources out there. And this one does kind of roll into number 8 in some aspects. We've had some family who have been super excited to meet the kids and don't realize that most of these kids are actually super reserved and don't really want to express their emotions. So don't push your child to express their emotions. Just let them know that you're there. I haven't really been able to successfully do this with any of the foster kids. I have done it when my friend's niece came to stay with us. She essentially stated that she was interested in girls, and I don't care about any of that stuff, but I let her know that all of that's all right, that she just kind of needs to focus on what makes her comfortable, especially because her mom stated that, well, her mom's only response was she chuckled and said, "You're weird," which is the worst response you can have if a child opens up to you. And I mean, it's super uncomfortable for a teenage girl to tell me anything like that. I've had foster kids who, one of the very first ones that we were going to adopt was like, "You don't even know what my sexuality is." I don't, and I know that's probably kind of important in like safety aspect, but I don't like to think in terms of that. I'm always supportive of who a kid wants to be, whether they're like transgender, gay, or bisexual. I'm always going to be supportive. I don't know how to traverse that. So it's always been kind of one of the harder things to do. But on the same plane, I don't push them to actually share that stuff with me or how they're feeling. I always just try to make sure that they know that I am here for them to talk to. And on a more kind of upbeat topic that's not as hard for me to wrap my mind around, it's just been a lot of that's very hard to traverse, especially because as a guy, I don't know what these children have been through, so it's hard for me to know. Essentially, when asking about something, maybe overstepping a boundary, I never want to do that. But number 9 is games. This one's been huge in our house, and doing this is extremely important. Not only does it build like that bond, but it also can be used for the kid. My wife actually bought a game that would teach him essentially to slow down. It was a matching game where you'd have, I think it's 4 sets of 4. At some point I'll go over games and stuff and go over a list and kind of give suggestions on that. That'd be fun to do, but you have 4 stacks of 4 and you have to get all the matching cards in there, and it's like articles of clothing, so you actually trade them out with the middle and you have to go slow and think about it. And it helped him a lot, I believe, in actually making those connections, slowing down, trying to take his time instead of rushing through everything. So not only does this allow for you to bond with them, it also can be used to teach them stuff and even kind of like show compassion, which relates to number 10, and spend time together. Just take time to do things that they like, especially with that 17-year-old. We took her to Jhené Aiko. Don't know who that is outside of going to that concert and kind of listening to some of the music. It's not completely my type of music. I didn't hate it. It was honestly listenable, but I never would have sought that music out. I don't think I ever would have run into that music in the wild, in all honesty. I don't listen to normal radio. I listen to Spotify and listen to music that's like what I like. So take time to spend time with them and learn their interests. Even if you're not going to spend money or you don't have that huge amount of extra money to spend on them, it kind of builds that rapport. Do arts and crafts. Go out and buy stuff that you can do together. Be creative. I've learned that being creative has helped me a ton. And it's so rewarding afterwards, getting to hang up the pictures. We did one where you take like 5 minutes with the picture, you paint what you want, or it might have been shorter. And then after that amount of time, you switch with the person to, say, your left, and they paint on that picture and add something. Then you switch, and you do that a few times and go with whatever the creation is after that. And that was super fun. But there are tons of things you can do together that don't take a lot of effort, but are so rewarding. Which honestly, that goes into number 11, reward when they adjust, especially because it's so easy to give out punishments and stuff, which I feel it's easier to give out the punishments, but sometimes I forget to give the rewards and the affirmations and showing them that I see what they are doing. I've worked on it in therapy and tried to implement it, and there are times I forget, but I feel it is a rewarding moment and kind of a bonding moment when you let them know, hey, your room was clean today, it wasn't the rest of the week. You know, you did a great job with that. You helped with dinner. Way to go with that. Your homework was done. You played with your sibling and didn't fight with them. It's also rewarding to kind of get that bonding moment instead of just being the captain and trying to keep the ship going. It's nice to get that bonding experience and teach them valuable lessons along the way as well. But all of this, honestly, helps to mitigate the sibling jealousy because it will not only help bond the children together, it'll also create that bond with you, and for the times where you do things separately or get them involved in the things that they do together, it'll especially help them understand things about each other and build that bond. Even when they aren't from the same sibling group, if they are from different foster care cases, which is beneficial because they are going through some of the same stuff, which can be scary, such as court, visits, placements, and all these things that a normal child or even foster parent wouldn't truly understand. I mean, I'd never know how to react if I was bounced from one home to another without my parents there, without my siblings. So it helps to just build this bond and show them that they aren't being replaced if you bring a new child in, or that they aren't at risk of being kicked out just because there's another child in the house that may be more attached to you than they are since they're a little more independent. We've definitely noticed that with the 17-year-old, which I'll actually go over now because we are done with that article. And when we got the two kids, this was the child and toddler. She had originally mentioned, I'm not going to take care of another child, which as a foster parent, your immediate response is they're not yours to take care of. But in her case, it was understandable. She had been the caregiver for her younger sister for so long that I can see where it came from. And we, on numerous occasions, tried to show her that she wasn't going to be responsible for taking care of the toddler, that we were the ones that were going to take care of him, that everything was going to be done by us. And there were times she offered to help, which she was never required to. It was actually she came forward and wanted to do things with him, especially when like dinner was being made. And unfortunately, I think in the long run, it did take its toll to where maybe she felt like she was replaced just because those two needed more help. But she was staying at friends like all the time. And there were weekends and vacations from school, those stretches where we wouldn't even see her. And we'd actually go do things with the boys because she wasn't around. Even though we did always invite her, dinners, everything like that. For some of it, you do have to understand that there may not be a rhyme or reason. It might be something that is set off by one of their triggers, things that have happened in their past, things that you can never truly fully understand. The best thing you can do is follow these guidelines and let them know you are there. And if you do all of that and make that effort and don't just treat them like a burden, that if they end up choosing that they want to leave on their own accord, that at least you tried. And I try to remember that. There's so many things where I think I could have done this or I could have done that, but I have to realize that if I keep essentially poisoning the well like that, it's only going to hinder any other placements that we get, and that's not fair to whatever new placement they get, and that I need to focus on being a more effective and passionate foster parent. And before the 17-year-old and the two boys, actually, we did have the first child that we were going to adopt, we'll call her Lex. And at a certain point, we had realized that through trying to do all this stuff, we were not able to fully get that bond with her. Plus, she was giving out her cell phone number on Discord to random people she didn't know. And even after missing out on things like a concert she was supposed to go to, she kept doing things like that, was super inappropriate with an AI and role-playing very inappropriate stuff with a 10-year-old AI, which I will go over when I go over an episode with her. And we finally put in our 30 days with her. And she was extremely upset with Emma. She would actually stand in her own doorway and stare at Emma when she would go to her room, which was making her super uncomfortable. But all of that came from Lex's own things and had been warned about for months. And that's another one where I tried to ask if there was something else I could have done, something I could have focused on. And honestly, for that one, I don't think so, because there's no way we could have had any of these younger children in our house if she was still here. So honestly, that was a hard decision to make, but it just had to be done because there was no way we could have invited any younger kids into our house without putting them at risk. And if something like that would have happened, I would have been devastated, and I definitely would have blamed myself far more than having to put my 30 days in with her. And the final one is the 14-year-old. He's not too big of a fan of the two girls. They are very rambunctious, like I said earlier. Always screaming, asking questions, running around, bickering with each other. So we've tried to do the bonding stuff. We've offered to have him come watch movies with us when we're watching them, go out to do stuff. Unfortunately, not much of it's working, so I think he's changing his permanency plans, especially with going to stay with biological family. I think it's going to be one of those things where he might actually be the one that chooses to move on, which is unfortunate. We've been supportive and tried to let him know that we are here and care about him, but there's only so much we can do, honestly. We've had him for, I think, about 2 months now and tried to do as much as we could. We never really see him. He never really leaves his room, so that's unfortunate. We try to be supportive, especially of the art and everything that he does. So honestly, that's all I can really do. I'm trying to do the stuff off from this list and enact it. And hopefully, I mean, I learned a lot from it and have seen how I can change different things, and knowing what I've been doing has been at least partially effective. And I love to hear that and know that I've been at least trying some of the right things while not completely screwing everything up. That is at least a little reassuring. So if you have any suggestions on things that you try, maybe different things you do with your kids that you have found super effective. I mean, at one time I read that actually giving a kid sour candy can kind of diffuse an outburst because it draws all of their senses to that new sensation and will kind of diffuse a situation as they have this new sensation going on and brings them down from that heightened fight or flight response, which honestly I never would have considered, but I do want to look into something like that, even for my own anxiety, because there are times where I get so heightened and worried I'm going to make the wrong decision that it has probably in the past hindered some of the decisions I made, so I'd be super curious to see if any of that's true. But I do want to thank you for listening. Please like, subscribe, and share my podcast. Please rate it. If you have anything, please email fosterdaddirective@gmail.com with any feedback, ideas, or stories. I'd love to hear from you. I'm hoping to get some guests on. I haven't heard back from any I've reached out to. Unfortunately, I will be doing reviews of the 2 books that I did buy. I've already bought them. I might as well. Especially because I thought they were useful and could be helpful to somebody who's either a new parenting or even by somebody who's got experience. They do have a lot of helpful information on them, especially the reset method. And then the Union of Dads one was a huge insight into the custody courts and the battles that dads generally go through, but also things that you can do to help strengthen your case. So I want to do both of those just because I found the books to be extremely helpful, especially for the cost. It was extremely insightful. So, as always, thank you so much for listening, and may your kids' chaos be funny after 5 minutes and not 5 years. Have a wonderful rest of your week. Bye.